In this video, I want to talk to you about the watercolor palettes that I sell and use. You can use whatever you want for my videos. I'm just going to give you some recommendations. I use this set. It's called Tropicals, and this is my most used for my videos and on the go. I have many other supplemental palettes that I like to use, and I'm going to tell you why I like this small set like this. Because one, it's compact. Two, I can add other pans in the middle here and add to my collection like this. I can take this black and have this on hand, and I can fill those up if I'd like. Also, I can use a tube of watercolor paint like this. I'm going to add this over here to my supplemental palette, but you can add this right here to your box set, just like so. If you add that into your palette, let's say right here, you could add a few colors in there. You can just add a small amount because, especially like black, it is going to last a very long time, and you can always reignite that paint after it's dry, just like these are dry, and you have it to use all the time in your set as you go. So talking about the Tropicals specifically, I like this set because it has a lot of very bright colors, and I'm going to test a few out here so that you can see them. And I can mix a lot of colors in here and make so many things, and I can mix up a black and a gray and all different kinds of variants of these colors by using complementary mixing. But the thing that I like the very most, besides it being bright and being able to tone it down by adding a brown, I can use this palette, and in my composition, it will automatically look cohesive together. I also have this motif that I used with the tropical scent. This one has the vibrant colors. I've toned down some of these greens, but you can see that the composition looks good together. These paints all work well with one another no matter what you're mixing. I'm going to show you now an example of a very large set. Some of you may be tempted to get a large set with a lot of colors, which is great because you've got everything at hand and you can add some of those extras into here, into your smaller palette. So I'm going to go and grab that and show it to you now. Wow, so this set has 48 colors. It's an amazing set, an amazing company. These little guys pop out of this set, and you could add them into your smaller set if you have a big set like this. The problem that I have is I want to really paint on the go, quick, as an outlet. And so if I'm trying to do something very professionally and I want every color at my disposal, this is great. But I have to go and put these colors together. I'm an interior designer by degree, and so it's kind of like curating a palette to come together to make sure it looks cohesive. Not every color in this palette looks good with another color. So it does take a lot of effort and work and planning to figure out what is going to look good together. So usually, because I'm using painting as an escape and on the go, I don't use this palette, but I do have it as a choice if I need a particular color. So back to this set, these colors all look good together. I don't have to plan out. I can just look at the basics and sort of tweak each of those colors as I go. I'm going to show you how you would take, for instance, this green. It's called Palm out of this set, and I will take that palm and mix it, that green called Palm, and mix it with this tiki, and now you can see got a lot of water in there. That is kind of more of a muted tone now. And so as that dries, you'll see the example in a second. And then they have this kind of yellowy bright green, which is fabulous for doing palm trees and other fun motifs. But as well, you can add that tiki to it, and it starts to tone it down. So it gives you a couple of good greens. And then we've got this one here, Parrot, which is kind of a yellowy green, and it's great as a first layer under leaves. And then you can add more pigment. You can see the more pigments you have and the less you can see the paper through it, it's going to become more intense. And I paint like a pear, or you saw that color here in this kind of beach bag. We'll let those dry and take a look at them. I also have something like this orange, which is called hibiscus. And it's nice and bright and vibrant, good for flowers. And I can make it more of a terracotta color by just adding a little bit of that brown in there. You can see you could do a clay pot with that, but that's just mixing those two colors together. When I do my videos, I will tell you that information so that you can follow along if you've got this tropical set or something similar at your home. So I also can mix a little bit of this lovely pink color with a little bit of this kind of orange color, and now you get sort of a nice rosy coral versus, say, this is straight out of the box, a nice strong pink. So you can see that you can make all of these variations here. Even say this, I'm going to put this in this box, this coconut color. I'm going to show you, you can now have this type of color so that you get a nice maybe sand if you're doing something like this, or as you saw on that sea turtle, something like this. So even though this is a pretty strong yellow, as you can see, I can tone it down by adding more water or also adding just a tad of that brown to just mute the intensity right there. Now I've got this very strong purple right here, and I can mix that with a little bit of this sunset, as you saw me do, using my water brush, as you can see. So I'm squeezing a little bit, but the water brush bends and releases water here, and I'm just clearing it off with my paper towel. So now I can make somewhat of a raspberry color out of this color here and that purple there. Go across here, and I've got this Patea red, which is kind of pinky. However, if I wanted to tone it down a little bit and make it a little bit more of a brick red or a true red, I can play around with adding some brown to that, making it a little more of a brick red. And you can also create a black or gray by using complementary colors. In this case, it'd be ocean and a little bit of this orange, and that's a little blue. Just play around with that. Now it's brown, and it's really fun because I've got a lot of great colors now. You could mix so many different warm grays out of that. Oh, I really like this color. I'm going to try it out in my orange area there. Okay, so let's take some of that again. Pick a new spot because I obviously put too much in. I guess that's the trick to it. You're just kind of playing around with adding a little bit by a little bit. And you see there, that's a black I just made out of a little bit of this and a tiny bit of that. And then if I add more water to it, I can make it a silvery gray. So you've got a lot of things that you can work with within this palette and make a ton of colors, and each of these you can change the tone of them as well. So they work well and cohesive together. You see how beautiful those look already with one another. And one thing I didn't show you here are some of the blues. So that's a really nice, that ocean color, really nice deep blue. Often use that for some of my bottom of my clouds. This I use for water sometimes. And then I'll take a little bit of this hurricane blue, add it with a little bit of palm, and I've got this nice bright kind of dreamy ocean color there. So see, I just added a little bit of this and this together. And like I said, in my videos, I will tell you if I'm creating a color with this kit, if you have similar colors in your box at home, how to kind of mix that. So now I'm going to show you this classic set. You may have purchased a set similar to this, especially those who also sell books and things like I do. They look a little different, but they're kind of those basic primary sets that you remember having as a kid. And they're great because you can mix anything with this box. The problem is it is more work to combine these to make them more of a rich color or something you're more apt to see in nature that you may be painting. I will show you now, for instance, the orange from this box looks like this. And I can mix this orange with a little bit of brown. I can mix a little bit of red into this orange, and now I have more of this same color here. And I can, let's see, I started to make that terracotta there. Can kind of mix that up and get more of a richer color. So I can get some neutrals and things out of a basic set like this. A couple of nice things about this set is it comes with a black already mixed. And it has a gray, brown, purple. They're purple. I'll show you in this one. Looks like this shade of purple. It's already more of that raspberry color, but you could add a little bit of blue to that and get to where we were over here. You can create with this kit along with my videos. The nice thing is this white here can make pastel colors, so that's a lot of fun. And you can make any of these pastel by adding that. You can get a tube of that and add it to your palette over here if you really enjoy that and want some pastel. So you can mix out of any set that you have to basically create these. It's just a little bit more work, but you've got the versatility there. So this is the tropical set that I use for the majority of my examples, my online classes, and my in-person classes. We started mixing up some of these colors and we talked about how they work so well together. So now I'm going to introduce to you my woodland set. I use this for a lot of my examples that you'll see online, and I also use them for the online classes and my in-person classes. So as we just talked about, I have the tropical set, which we've seen exampled here, but now I'm going to compare this woodlands, and you can see that the red in here, this is the red from this set, looks like this. So it's more of a cranberry color. Now, if I wanted to make that cranberry color a little more purpley, I can go ahead and add a little bit of blue to it. So these are more toned down. The nice feature about this one is we do have a pre-made black colors, kind of a black gray. I have another gray here. And then this kind of tan color, which is great for making sand. The ocean has a lot of uses, especially to work with these colors in mixing. And we've got a few bright colors. So I'm going to compare that. We've got this bright blue, another one, and then more of a subtle blue over here. We can mix these two together, which tones them down a little bit and kind of gives you the same color as we had in the tropical set up here. We've got this bright, bright yellow. I'll move that to this area here, and that's great for laying underneath a leaf if you're painting one as the first layer that would then dry. And we've got this nice brown here in our neutrals. I like to use this green here, has a little bit more blue naturally in it than these two right out of the box. So I'll add that here. And this is a deeper color if you use more pigment. And so that's really great for leaves right out of the box or trees. And then sometimes I add, because it has more blue, I'll use a little bit of this. It has yellow in it, and that makes a nice kind of more olive green. And you can brighten this deep green up by adding a little bit of that daylight. And now you've got that more tropicals, poppy color for this. So you can move around in this box. Once you get familiar with your box, then you start to know how the colors mix. You can play around like this and start to get a gist of it. Obviously, the more water you have, the less bright that color is. For instance, I'm going to add water there and maybe even more water. And you can do very pale versions of the same color. You can see I can get like a rosy pink out of this bright color here. This is kind of the full version of that. I can get a brick red. Then I could do this kind of purple color here, make a pink. So there are ways to paint and create for doing, say, flowers. So you can see, for example, in this one I painted with the woodland set. I've got this kind of corally orangey color that came from this dark color, but with water right here I can create this kind of tone with it. I created these by using a little bit of that green and that yellow together to get that kind of celadon green. And then the water, I can add a little bit of these bright blues with a little tiny bit of green. And I demonstrate that in my videos so that you can follow along. And you can create almost all of these colors from my Tropicals palette as well. So these have got these natural terracotta looking colors, but you can create those in the Tropicals, as we discussed earlier, by using, say, an orange and a brown together, created this kind of color over here. So these two sets work really well together. So I don't usually cross them over, but you can. And you can add to your palette here, and you can use the squeeze tube as I showed you before. For instance, if I wanted a different color green that I use very often per se, I can just take a little bit of that. If I bought it at the store, have this tube available. And now I can just let this dry and harden like these do, and then I can ignite them with water after it's already dry so that I always have this color available to me from this palette. So if you wanted a few bright pinks or highlight colors to just kind of add in here in case you're out and about and this doesn't suffice for the flowers that you're seeing, you can add a couple of dabs of that paint. They will dry and harden. You can just add water and it'll ignite. Now I have this Pastel Dreams palette, which I love. It's such a sweet little set. And I do a lot of my doodle drawings. I paint with these colors and then I supplement in from some of my others if I need to. And so what you're seeing here are the examples I gave of using the Woodlands palette that I sell. You also see here my Tropicals palette, which I use most often. I suggest pairing the Tropicals with that pastel so that you have everything you need in your little bag of art supplies. This pastel palette is super sweet and fun. They're less see-through and more opaque, so it's almost as if you had the classic set and you were adding a white to any of the colors we have already. You can see I call them a little bit chalky. And so those are super fun to paint with, and you can get some interesting colors. Let's say we've got this beautiful, I love this color, kind of this pinky coral. You can add a little bit of this orange to it and just a dab of this kind of brown color, and you get a terracotta. So out of this palette, you can get a terracotta. It's very difficult to get like a black or gray out of this. You can get a tube of black watercolor paint and just add that little bit of paint will go a long way, and you'll always have it there. After it dries, you can always just add water to it like you do with these, and it's ready to go. So you can do that for a few of your favorite colors, or you can combine some of your palettes together. If you got this one and say the woodlands, you can just grab this shadow, just put it in here and combine your sets and sort of make, you've got 6 choices here. So if you find that you're not using a few of these colors or the brown is a repeat, then you can just take your favorite colors here and add them in this channel there. We can see how this blue is different than that one. Is sort of a silvery gray. Sometimes I use that to paint a little cupcake stand. And this kind of fun sherbet green here are different than these other palettes. Less intense, very sweet and nice, and also a lot of fun, mostly as a supplement to what you have already. We can store all of the fun goodies that we have. So you see I've got my water brush, a pencil, and I've got a Micron pen and a kneaded eraser here. I can just drop that into a zip pouch. I make sure that these are larger than a 5x7 because I've got my book here that's 5.5 by 7, and I can just fit that right in the zip pouch so that I can take it on the go. I can put my watercolor palette in here as well, any of the 5x7 Taken paints, and I can add more palettes as well. I can zip that up and take it wherever my creativity may lead me.